Welcome to Red Pill Raw Truth. I'm your host, Matthew Horbury. Today we are lucky to be joined by two guests. First, let me welcome back to the show Mr. Andrew Red Pill Johnson, author of the book 911 Finding the Truth. Welcome back, Andrew.
Hi there, Matthew. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Glad to have you back.
Thanks.
Also, we are highly honoured to welcome to the show the most controversial figure in the 9/11 truth. Often wrongly ridiculed, slammed, scorned, ambushed, even threatened when she should be honoured for the Nobel Prize. She's the author of the book, Where Did the Towers Go? That has been called the most important book since the Bible. Welcome to the show, Dr. Judy Wood.
Well, thank you for having me. Let me take issue with the statement controversial.
Okay.
That sets up a psy-ops. What I present is not controversial.
Okay.
Yeah, facts are not controversial. Well, it might be controversial whether someone wants to look at the facts, but when people say something's controversial, that inserts doubt. That's part of the psychological operation.
Okay, I never said your information was controversial.
Right, but I'm controversial, but I'm a human. I don't think that's...
Okay, sorry. I apologize.
But you see how that habit gets picked up. You know, somebody says something's controversial. I may be the most hated, but that's, I'm not, it's not controversial if I'm a person. It's not controversial if I present evidence.
I think you're only hated until people have looked at your work, and then I think
Yep.
you win people over just by pure evidence.
So why am I referred to as controversial?
I just thought.
No, not by you, but it's a commonly used term.
It is.
I think it's part of the psy-ops, and that I was reading something about. Somebody sent me a message this week, and I was sort of diverting off a little bit from what we normally talk about, but it's psycholinguistics. It's how language is used to create implicit assumptions. And I'm trying to think of the example that was given. Yeah, it's a phrase, who rattled your cage? You know, when somebody says to you, who rattled your cage? I don't know if it's such a common phrase in the US, but it's quite common in the UK, this phrase. And this is this idea of psycholinguistics, is when you hear that phrase used, quite regularly, it conjures up this impression that each person is in a cage, and they're happy because when you use this phrase, "Who rattled your cage?" it's like somebody is reacting, in a way which is either extreme or it's inappropriate or whatever. And so, in just those few simple words, you've encapsulated this idea of slavery, and that we should be happy with slavery by being in a cage.
And also doubt. Rattling your cage means that, you little thing are upset. Me who are accusing you of it, I'm fine. And you're the
right.
low life who's upset.
And I think we each get kind of used to using these phrases, and that particular phrase, I must have said it probably, I don't know, at least 100 times, in my lifetime. And you just kind of pick these things up. And who thinks of these phrases? Sometimes we know, and sometimes we don't. But
in 2007, a certain person held a conference that they invited me to. The conference became entitled 9/11 Truth, what's controversial and what's not. Like, we're going to decide what's controversial and what's not. Meanwhile, somebody else is giving presentations, and their conference is entitled Lifting the Veil, Enlightenment. And think of the different connotation that gives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, let's get into the... Sorry, Matthew, carry on.
Okay, I was going to say, let's get into the evidence then. Let's explain what happened on 9/11, because it's the most important thing. What happened?
Oh, very much, very much. Because if you understand what happened, everything else falls into place. But if you don't know what happened, and there's, I've realized there's three main reasons that people don't understand what happened. They don't know the truth, and they have trouble getting there. And that first thing is that poor problem-solving skills. They don't understand you need to begin with what happened, not theorizing, speculating, hypothesizing, and imagining. And the second thing is groupthink. People don't want to be out, solo. And that's partly from, an animal instinct. Think of a field of deer grazing. One spooks and they all run, and only one of them knows why they're running. But they feel safer running with the herd. But once they're running with the herd, it's very easy for just one person to redirect that herd. And the third thing is they're terrified of the implications. They don't want that to be the truth, so they're going to find all sorts of excuses. Well, that person's controversial who's showing those facts, so we're going to ignore those facts. Whatever they're trying to, they're uncomfortable with themselves looking at the facts, so because they don't like what it says, and so they're, it's a subconscious kind of attempt to avoid that discomfort. But any one of those three things, and they don't get there.
Right. I think you're right. I was, when I was lost, when I first discovered that 9/11 wasn't quite as it seemed, as the mainstream media explained it, I was looking for some leader, and I found my false leaders. And you get led down the garden path.
I've got a question to ask you.
Okay.
Do you think those who planned 9/11, it was pretty serious planning, do you think they forgot to plan a cover-up?
I didn't even think about it, to be honest. Yeah, at the time when I was looking for answers, I didn't think about the cover-up. I just thought I'd found my answers. That's where, you get led down the garden path why the people are like, cherry-picked the evidence to support their theory and they said, right, there we go, that's what happened, and you go, look at what happened, and they put a nice slick documentary for you to watch that's too well made. Yeah.
There's a quote I read on the internet, and I'd forgotten where I found it, and I found it again. Mark Tokarski is the one who said it. He said, if you find yourself on the garden path, it's a good time to leave the garden.
Yeah, well...
breadcrumb trails are left out there to be found. I call it like an Easter egg hunt for a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old, the Easter eggs are right there out there in the middle of the path, and the 3-year-old thinks they've really discovered something. They hang on to it and treasure it. And there's Easter eggs that are just laid out there like breadcrumbs that steer you off into the wild blue yonder.
Yep. Too easy to find. It was too easy to find. Okay, so where we start with the evidence? Should we start with what happened to the towers?
Well, that's an excellent place to start. That's another problem with the problem-solving skills. You need to start with what happened. A lot of people say this did it, that did it, that did it. Did what? What's it? You have to define what it is before you can say, thermite did it, bombs did it, bin Laden did it. What was it that got done? So once you define what it is, then it becomes clear what the occasion is. It's kind of like you have a dead body. Does it have bullet holes in it? Does it have poison in it? You do an autopsy to see what it was that got done, that killed the person. And so part of finding out what happened is determining the destructive mechanism. Did the buildings get beaten to death? Did a wrecking ball hit them? Did a missile hit them? Different damage happens from fires burning up a building versus something slamming into them. Slamming into them is kinetic energy, whether it's a missile, wrecking ball, big hammer, little hammer, lots of little tiny hammers. That's, something slamming into something. And if it's a gravity collapse, that would be kinetic energy destroying the building. One floor bashing into the next floor. And another type of destructive mechanism would be thermal energy. You heat the building up till it melts, or till it, if it's on fire, or till the steel softens and it gets too weak, and then kinetic energy kicks in. And another type of destructive mechanism that most people don't think of, I call it directed energy. Energy is directed, it's instructed to do something differently than it normally does. Kind of a no-touch-em thing. It's like that over there is being directed. Think of your TV remote control. It directs the TV to change channels without touching the TV. It's not using thermal energy. It's not using kinetic energy. It's using a different kind of signal that the TV picks up on. So I call that directed energy. And if it's used as a weapon, that's a directed energy weapon. It's a very large category. A lot of people say, she says it was ray beams from outer space, or laser beams from outer space. Well, the destructive mechanism that would be caused by laser beams would be thermal energy. And we can rule out thermal energy as a destructive mechanism if we look through all the evidence. And you don't, this is something, because this is my area of expertise, you let the evidence speak to you and tell what happened. As an analogy, I say it's like teaching a cat to walk on a leash, or getting a cat to walk on a leash. If you drag the cat, or you want the cat to go here where you're trying to tell it to go, it's not going to be very good for you or the cat. But if you let the cat go where it wants to go, then it'll walk on a leash. So
if you're looking to bring someone to justice, is it really important what happened? Because they obviously did it. Does it matter? Is it that important to get justice?
Okay, you're going to bring somebody to justice. What are you going to charge them with?
Well, the destruction of the World Trade Center.
Okay, what did they do that you're going to charge them with? You got to charge them with a crime. You got to figure out what the crime is you're going to charge them with.
So it is important then.
Right, because you can't take somebody to court based on, you just look guilty. I just think you're guilty because I feel it in my gut that you look suspicious, so we're going to charge you with something. You need to know what they did. It depends on what the crime is. And then you take them to court to prove that crime or to demonstrate that's what they did. Like, you don't say, well, you killed so-and-so. Oh, no, I don't have an autopsy report. I don't have a weapon. I just know you did it. I think that's going to get tossed out. And, of course, we have the, well-publicized Casey Anthony trial where the prosecution failed to solve the crime. They did not prove what happened to the child. How did the child die? Was it accidental poisoning? Was it drowning? Was it, chloroform? Did they beat the kid to death? That was not determined. It could have been, negligence. It could have been that they gave the kid, overdose of sleeping pills they didn't mean to, and that would be homicide. Versus, deliberately planned to kill the kid. So that's homicide versus first-degree murder with the death penalty. Those are different crimes. Or the person is completely innocent, it's such a wide range. If you haven't proved the crime, you can't charge somebody with it legally.
Right. So if there's no evidence for thermite, you can't take someone to court and say you destroyed the building with thermite.
No. Remember, we have to start out with what happened, and part of that is the destructive mechanism. What is the destructive mechanism of thermite?
Well, we discussed this last week with me and Andrew. We I think we put thermite to bed last week. But it's worth going over again. Is it thermal energy? Yeah, it is.
Or kinetic energy. If they claim it's explosive, which I don't think it is, but whichever they sometimes oscillate between saying it's explosive and saying it puts out lots of heat. Well, the building wasn't burned up. It didn't melt, and it wasn't beaten to death. It didn't fail from kinetic energy or from thermal energy. So instead of picking on a specific item under the umbrella of kinetic energy or under the umbrella of thermal energy, that's what thermite would be one of those items. They haven't even determined that it's the destructive mechanism to say that's what did it.
Okay. And, so what evidence have we got then?
Well, there's also the issue of because they claim they found something in the dust.
Right.
Some of the ingredients of it. And in my book, I talk about this, and I said, well, the building was turned to dust. That is one thing we do know. Most of the building was turned to dust. I'm not saying 100%, but the majority of it was turned to dust. And so, therefore, the dust would be expected to contain all traces of all materials that were in the building. So if you could find traces of chocolate, sugar, and nano-wheat, flour, in the dust, that wouldn't prove that chocolate chip cookies turned the buildings to dust. It wouldn't even prove that those ingredients had been combined as chocolate chip cookies in the building, nor it proved they're even capable of turning the buildings to dust. And the same is true for thermite. Finding constituents of the building in the dust is not proof of what happened to the buildings.